Hello, hello, hello. Sorry for not scheduling this time. Just completely forgot the time. Hope a few of you made it anyway. But yeah, given the scheduling thing, I'll give it a minute or two. So be a little bit patient with me. Hello, XRP Don. Dude, I fucking hate XRP, but I mean, if it's gonna make me money, I don't really care. I'm just gonna trade it. Aped my soul into XRP yesterday. Hopefully I will not regret it. I think soul setup is really, really good. So I could see you regret that, but I'm happy with the XRP setup too. So hopefully not as much regret as with any other altcoin. Hey Don, hey guys, good to see you. So yeah, before we start, shout out to the sponsor of the show, which is FTX, formerly known as Blockfolio. Their links are in the description if you want to check them out. They're pretty good. Their mobile trading app is pretty much the best one out there, in my opinion anyway. And you can also do like the portfolio tracking and everything in that direction on there. So if you want to check that out, check it out. And yeah, big shout out to them for sponsoring the show. Hey Don, excited to hear what you've got to say today. Always learn so much. Appreciate that comment, mate. Really nice of you to say. So yeah, here we go. Let's start with Bitcoin, right? And then go over to the altcoins. Something like we talked about this last week and we're pretty much at the exact same price, right? I mean, 7 days ago, that was pretty much the exact same price, right? And we talked about this back then, like there's still a really, really good chance that this is the complacency bounce. And Bitcoin doesn't actually look too good right now, I think. We've had like fake breakout. Now we're rallying back into resistance. If that holds, you get like a tiny head and shoulders, and we've had that before, right? You don't want to have that. That would take it to like 40K-ish. So hoping that gets invalidated relatively soon. If it doesn't, I might have to like trade my altcoins again, like I did a couple days ago. And I'll tell you like how and what I did and all that stuff. The only person who should make a paid group but doesn't want to, Jesus, dude, like the paid group thing, I don't understand. Like imagine like charging $100 for someone to like get into your paid group for a month, and you get like 100 people and they all shout your name the entire time. You have to take like babysit them. Sounds worse than hell to me. Fuck no. And I mean, they are entitled to it, right? Given they're paying you. But yeah, Bitcoin looking kind of rough in my eyes, which I mean, higher time frame still fine, right? Let me actually clean this up for a second. So higher time frame, we're at high time frame support, right? But the lower time frames, they're looking a little bit rough. So could see that like not perform as well, but in general, like this isn't too bad, right? This chart, given we are at support right now, doesn't scream like lower from here just yet. It would start screaming lower to me regardless of the weekly time frame if you start losing 40K. And I still think like if you want to be bearish, I mean this like it's starting to get a little bit more dicey, but like it's still best to kind of be bearish below 40K. You don't want to be bearish above 40K in my opinion, because the trade below 40K is just going to be that much easier. Like let's say we move and start closing back below 40K, stop loss roughly here, target like in the 20Ks, like that's a much better trade than shorting here, because I think like right now the chances of us going higher are actually decent still. Below 40K, like I think we could do something like that and then probably just head straight down. So if that happens, that'd be pretty bearish, but until then, like no reason to be bearish. And so I'm not still positioning the altcoins. If it starts, like if it still looks dicey towards like tomorrow, I'll start de-risking some again and then re-add them later. And I'll show you an example of that, how I traded XRP a couple of days ago in a bit. But yeah, let me quickly get the spammers out. Probably distribution. I could see it, but then again, no reason to talk about it as long as we're trading above support. That's Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's pretty straightforward and pretty boring, right? It starts getting interesting at 50K. I think that's where you really have to kind of look at it. And it starts getting interesting if it breaks the support and goes toward 40K. And this is like where you really, really have to watch it. Anything beyond that, not really too interesting. Okay. With regards to the altcoins, there's more to see there. Like ETH's still boring, right? ETH isn't doing anything. I think there's better time. Like your time is better spent looking everywhere else but ETH. I've been saying this for a while. Given ETH-USD was at support, we talked about at resistance. We talked about this last week as well. Got rejected there. Now in the middle of nowhere, right? ETH gets interesting at 2.7K or above 3.4K. Anything beyond that, like whatever. ETH can do whatever it wants to do. And it's not really volatile, so there's nothing there. ADA has been pretty strong. Wish I had a setup for that. I was actually expecting it to be outperforming if other altcoins did well. The only problem was that like there was not really a good setup there. But yeah, ADA is pretty close to a new all-time high. On the Bitcoin chart, I don't really see a reason to be bearish ADA, other than its fundamentals, but I don't really mind. Like, I don't want to talk about those. Like, just chart-wise, looks pretty good. And I think ADA and XRP are probably going to just trade the same way. Like, look at the weekly time frame for ADA and then look at it on XRP. It's pretty much the same thing. And then even if you, and I've had a few people kind of tweet at me being like, haha, you noob, you've been talking about XRP a lot. ADA has been pretty much like has been outperforming. It's just bullshit, right? XRP has actually been outperforming for the last few weeks, even though ADA has been doing really well. So that's not necessarily true, but I think they're pretty much in line. Like they're doing the same thing, correlated if you want to say it that way. So yeah, and with regards to the XRP trade that I took, I saw Bitcoin stalling out, right? Let me actually show you this real quick. I saw Bitcoin stalling out on lower time frames and just started looking really ugly. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, Bitcoin's probably gonna move down, and the correlations on like down moves are pretty high. So I'm just gonna sell my altcoins, buy them back cheaper, right? And Bitcoin broke down. I bought them back basically down here, went up and then broke down again. So could have been more patient, could have bought support on the altcoins, but I don't really mind it. Like securing these like a couple of percent, and I mean for Bitcoin this is just a tiny move, right? This was just like 4% or whatever, but like for XRP I actually sold pretty close to the top and then bought pretty back, like pretty much bought the low, 10% lower. So I got like 10% out of it, which is pretty nice. And now we're trading a little bit back above it. So yeah, that's kind of how I do these things. And I think like the same thing is going to be true if this daily starts rolling over, right? If Bitcoin does this and starts rolling over, we're going to see blood on the altcoins again. And I'm just going to sell them and then buy them back, at least sell them partially and then buy them back a little bit cheaper later on. So what do you think about the Soul run? I mean, it's just an all-time high run, right? No reason to be bearish on that. Cred and I wrote about it on the newsletter. So if you want to check that out, check it out. But yeah, I'm still like on the Bitcoin pair on XRP. And that's like the main setup that I had anyway. Like I shielded like literally down here. It popped, and I still think like you look at this and it looks really, really good still, right? It got rejected by resistance, which I mean is really surprising. Pulled back a little, still looks really good. And there's actually like, if you want to like zoom in a little, there's actually some support in here, right? As long as that doesn't give out, and I'm more than happy to get out if that support gets lost. And I think that's actually a really good invalidation. This rolls over, I think it's probably gonna just roll over completely. But as long as that's not the case, I mean, this just looks like it's gonna break out, right? So that's why I'm still focusing on it so much. And the only problem is that, like I said, if Bitcoin is in the distribution phase of things, all of this is on the timer, right? The moment Bitcoin starts breaking down, the altcoins are going to shit. So we're kind of on borrowed time as long as we kind of assume Bitcoin is distributing. Like if it's not, and if it's starting to break out, the altcoins are gonna do just fine, right? So there's this time bomb basically in the case that Bitcoin is distributing, but if it's not, the altcoins are still not gonna do like decently fine, at least on the USD pairs. So there's either Bitcoin is distributing, Jesus, I should not write this by hand. Either Bitcoin distribution, right? And then we're on a timer, or this is actually just bullish Bitcoin. And then the old USD pairs are gonna go up. Or number 3, we're just gonna chop on Bitcoin. Those are like the 3 ways I see this play out, right? I mean, it's pretty much every kind of way it can play out. And when you have like this situation where like 2 out of the 3 are saying, okay, if this happens, altcoins are gonna do well, decent enough chance to take a bet, right? And I'm only saying that because I have good setups. If I didn't have like any good setups, this wouldn't be enough. But like good setups in combination with this, more than plenty for me. Does that make sense? I think it's pretty simple, but I've been having trouble explaining things to people. Like people have been kind of, I don't know. I get it when your Twitter account grows, like you get more and more appeal to like people that aren't really into the space and then say weird stuff, but it's still really, really odd. What do you mean by distribution? Just means like bigger players are selling into here, into a lower high, and then Bitcoin crashes down to like 20, 19, 15K. Could see all of that. Like if this is distribution, I could easily see 15K as a target. But it doesn't have to be, right? It can just be a level where we go sideways and then go up. But if it is distribution, I think the targets should be quite low. And I don't say it is or it's not. I'm just saying if it goes below 40K and stays there for a while, it's probably is. And then I'm expecting much, much lower, right? So like, I don't care if it is distribution or not right now. I care about it after the fact. Like, let's say this breaks down here, goes to 37K. Then I'll be pretty certain that this is distribution. And then I'm going to act that way, as in get out of positions, be ready to buy the dip, and then try to kind of catch like 20K or below. But before that happens, like, who cares, right? Doesn't really, like, there's enough room to play other stuff right now that I don't really mind either way. Okay. That's Bitcoin. I think we've talked about it plenty. XRP we talked about too. There's a couple ways this can play out. Either we are into something like this, right? Or, I mean, this is just gonna roll over. And I mean, XRP has done that plenty of times. So don't be like too certain that it's gonna do one or the other. Every time like people draw up fractals, they're like, this is 100% gonna play out the same way again. And then they draw out this fractal here and they're like, okay, this is gonna just do this. But there's a good chance it just does something else, which would be typical kind of XRP bleed out. And like I said, I showed you the box that I'm watching. If it does it, I'm gonna get out and reevaluate. And but yeah, so far, like whenever you have a rally, you have like a pullback in the middle of it. So I'm hoping we're in this area, and I'm hoping we're not into something like this, where it broke down and then had like a counter trend rally. But like structure wise, just looks completely different. Like this just looks pretty bullish on a structure kind of standpoint. Any view on Doge and Vitalik plus Elon getting involved? I mean, yeah, it's probably like short term when you see that, it's probably gonna go up short term. Generally speaking, I still think this is distribution. And the funny thing is, like this pump actually took Doge into like head and shoulders territory. So I want to see how that plays out. If it starts bleeding out here, I think it's just completely fucked. And I mean, Elon and like Vitalik or whatever being advising basically Doge doesn't do anything, right? If the market cycle is through, the market cycle is through. I'm not entirely like, I'm not mega bearish on this because I am like decently bullish on other altcoins, but I would be careful with Dogecoin in general. It's had its like 3 pushes up. It had pretty much everything that it usually has in a bull market, just on a bigger scale. And now it's dropped a little, but still not plenty. Like usually when Dogecoin drops, it goes down like 90-95%. And in this case, it's done like 60%. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes like all the way back to 100. And if you want to argue that Dogecoin is long-term bullish, I mean, buy 100, right? And then buy that uptrend, basically. If Bitcoin runs past 50K, do you think Bitcoin or altcoins run harder? That's a really good question. I think at that point, Bitcoin probably goes harder. So like the moment it starts breaking out to the upside, I think the altcoins aren't going to do as well on the Bitcoin pairs. And I mean, this has been exceptionally choppy if you look at it, right? The reason for this recent price action, right, this one, is because of the traditional markets. If you look at this, there's a meeting going on right now. And whenever you have that, the traditional markets get violent. And I mean, this is violent behavior for the traditional markets, even though like it doesn't look like it for us. Like this is quite violent, and that's always gonna have like spillover. I mean, you can even look at them side by side, right? Actually, let's do it this way. It's better to see. So this is Bitcoin, right? And now we look at SPX. And then you can see like this was the top for Bitcoin. And it's also the top for that SPX move, right? So yeah, but it's showing like, it's actually like, as you can see, this low was set basically on here, and Bitcoin's just kind of like going down a little bit further. It's showing a little bit of weakness, but the low time frame stuff doesn't really matter too much. I wouldn't make too much out of that, even though like it looks pretty significant on the 5 minute. This kind of stuff can happen on the lower time frames. If people start like, it only takes one person to sell or buy or whatever. The more troubling thing, like I said, is this head and shoulders setup. Or if you don't like the head and shoulders analogy, just like this kind of breakout above resistance. And I mean, we've seen this before, right? Into breakdown, not pretty. So that's kind of what I'm worried about. And if that plays out, we're going to get a massive hurt on the altcoins, right? So yeah, that's something that you kind of have to deal with trading altcoins, I guess. With regards to the altcoin setups, there's a few that look pretty decent yesterday. Obviously, some of this stuff has not been doing too well. today and end of yesterday, whatever. Aave is one of them against Bitcoin. Like, this isn't too bad. I could see it go back to support, and I think then it's a good play. Then you can either play it to resistance, and I think in this case you actually draw this like diagonal whatever and trade off of it because it's clean enough. And then you either play to resistance or kind of for the breakout and then play it upwards, right? I think Aave is pretty good against Bitcoin. Just looks pretty decent. I could, like, worst case, or not worst case, but in general, like if it goes back to support, I want to be a buyer. It's one of the ones, and I mean, it looks decent against USD as well. Right, so you flip support into resistance. The support, you flipped it into resistance, and now back into support. So could see that acts pretty nicely as like a stepping stone towards higher prices. Does the altcoin run worry you about complacency? Yes. That's why, like, the main reason why I think there's a good chance that we are actually in complacency. Because right now, if you look at this, like my chart, as bad as it might look on the daily, my chart is actually telling me like this is still completely fine. This is a bullish retest of support, basically. Like, Bitcoin doesn't look bad on the weekly anymore. It looked pretty damn bad in here. We talked about it. It moved down. It broke below the weekly range, and then we also talked about it reclaiming it and being incredibly bullish at that point, right? And then it had this rally, and now it's back at support, basically. The only problem that I see is that you have garbage like Dogecoin, garbage like XRP, like all of that stuff running. And whenever you have that, that's a recipe for disaster, right? You have like Bitcoin near or at high time frame resistance. And I would say, like, if you want to make a case, you can say like anywhere in here is high time frame resistance, with like the lower boundary being support, right? So anything in this area is resistance, even though like we're near like this horizontal line. So like Bitcoin being there and altcoins running is not a good combination. Like, you don't want to see that. And that's kind of what's happening right now. So that's why I actually like positioned for like the run on XRP, right? Because I was like, Bitcoin's at high time frame resistance. I think like people are gonna get complacent, shift their attention into altcoins. And that's what happened, right? Had a really nice pop. So yeah, if you want to make a case for complacency bounce, I think like the altcoin run is a really good one, and that's kind of my main thesis as well. I'm hoping I can kind of milk this for a little bit more, but that could be greedy of me, right? That could just be me trying to get more out of like a run that's already over. And I mean, I think that's valid criticism. As he talked about a TRX set. TRX, I actually have like a small position from support, basically. But there's not much to talk about. It's still, look at this. TRX actually still looks decent, I think. I think we talked about this last week. If not, my bad. But yeah, TRX against Bitcoin looks pretty decent. If it loses this, then I get worried and I probably get out. The only problem with all of these Bitcoin pairs looking good is that if Bitcoin rug pulls, it's not going to help you in your USD value. So what I usually try to do when I'm long all these, like for example, when I'm buying XRP, right, at down here, and I'm like, okay, I don't know where Bitcoin's going to go, is I usually short Bitcoin the same size as I long or buy XRP. Right now, I'm not short Bitcoin because that's a little bit difficult tax-wise. But I usually would be, just to avoid this situation where you have to look at the USD pair too much, even though the Bitcoin pair setup is really nice, right? Because right now, me being in altcoins, I have to actually look at both pairs, and it's really annoying. Like, usually I try to focus on one and then just cancel the other one out by shorting or longing Bitcoin. Are you coming to Dubai, Don? Yeah, I will. I will. Funny how everyone thinks XRP is garbage. I mean, it's been garbage. Pretty decentralized stuff. I mean, I prefer databases over it. But I don't like that doesn't really concern me too much as long as I think price is gonna go up, right? And that's all I speculate on. I could actually flip this into support now. This 4-hour candle on Bitcoin looks scary. Yeah, it does. Like, this is not good news. But like I said, this is SPX based. Like, you see, like, all of these moves, they reflect negatively on Bitcoin. So it's not necessarily, like, that's what I hate. Whenever, like, the SPX gets violent, I mean, your Bitcoin setups go out the window because they start correlating with traditional markets. Almost always see you trading dinosaur coins. Any reason for that? I mean, those are the ones I'm most familiar with. I've been trading them for years. I know exactly who's in them, who's not, who's going to dump on me, who's not going to dump on me, how big I can go. Am I going to have like an exploit or not? Like all the kind of questions that you have with like every other newer coin you don't have. So it's really easy. Like for me, look at this. I see like a good setup. I buy it, it goes up, it starts rolling over. Like let's say this does start rolling over, I get out, I bag like a what, 30% kind of gain. I'm fine with that. I much rather have that without like the risk of the protocol just dragging in general, even if the other coin would give me like twice the returns. It's just how I act. Like it's easier to quantify risk, and it's easier to get in size, and it's easier to kind of like, the thing is, I do trade some other stuff, but most of them I find too small to kind of promote on Twitter or on here or anywhere really. I don't want to be in a market where I'm like, I could like, there's a bunch of coins that are relatively small that I could impact, and I could make a bunch of money on that. I could even shill NFTs and make money off of that. Like just basically buy stuff, shill it, and then sell it later. But I'd just rather not do it. So I try to stick to the higher market cap ones, and those are gonna move less than the newer ones. But like I said, there's less moral hazard, and there's less in general like protocol ambiguity and just rug pulling chances. Because if I post something on Twitter of like a new protocol and it goes up, and I see something that I'm worried about, I'm gonna dump, and then maybe at that point it's already rug pulled, right? And I'm gonna have to sit there explaining to people, like, because people just stupidly go all in on stuff that I mention for some like stupid reason, and I'm gonna have to sit there explain to them why what they did was dumb and why it's not my fault, right? Fuck that, not into that. But I mean, you can trade all of that stuff. I don't really mind. I think there's a lot of good stuff out there to be traded, and you can do it. It's just like, for me, like promoting stuff that I haven't tested. I have no idea what the code looks like or if it's gonna work or not. It's just not something I want to do. And anything that I can pump and dump is not something I want to touch publicly anyway, because that's not what I'm here for. So there you go. Do you trade WeChain? Yeah, I do. I actually traded this pretty nicely. I sold into the pump and bought this back pretty low as well. Right now, Bitcoin pair is still below where I bought it back. Like I bought this pretty low, somewhere in there. Average wise, I think I'm down here somewhere. And yeah, traded back and forth. Don't mind that setup. But yeah, like I said, if Bitcoin rug pulls all the altcoins are gonna take a shit. So you're gonna have to pray that Bitcoin doesn't, at least not too soon. Why do you think leverage trades don't make it? That's not what I said. I said of all the people that haven't made it, like in general, like the only people that don't make it are the ones that use too much leverage. You can use leverage and do it just fine. I know a bunch of people, and myself, I've made like quite a bit of my profits with leverage. But the only people that long term don't make it are the ones that use too much. In crypto anyway. Like crypto moves like this, and then you bet on, like, let's say you bet on upside in here. And what Bitcoin does, or like what crypto does or likes to do, is something like this. You liquidate it here, you bet that price would go here, and it does, and you're sitting there not in position, right? That's the only way to kind of lose in this market. So that's why I tell people, like, if you want to go the certain way of like winning, stay clear of it. If you want to go like the risky way and then just make it out, make out like a bandit in a short amount of time, you can. It's just like most people are not going to. Like most people get wrecked trading leverage. That's why I tend to tell people not to. Like whenever someone in real life asks me what to do in crypto, I tell them to just like buy something that they believe in and then hold it. And then, yeah, that's basically it. But I mean, most people don't listen anyway, so. Hey Dawn, your thoughts on how much the Alameda group are involved in this last leg up, and shouldn't this be a clear red flag? I have no idea. No idea, but I mean, short squeezes in general, if you think this is a short squeeze, this entire thing, then yeah, that's hilariously bearish. And it could be. Like I said, I mean, I think complacency bounce, this being a complacency bounce is still pretty likely. So you gotta be a little bit careful. I just hope, like for me, I hope we're gonna move in this area, maybe even somewhere in here, before playing out either to the bullish or to the bearish side. So for a while, going sideways in here, or like doing whatever, so that my altcoins can run, and then either like do this or that. I don't really care. I think down move would be likelier in both cases, like whether we're in here or in here. But it doesn't really matter to me too much. I'm gonna trade it as like, I'm gonna just trade it if I see like where this is gonna go. Like let's say it down, like we lose 40K, I'm just gonna get the fuck out and then buy the dips. And if we start breaking above like 46, I think there's a good chance that we're gonna run to 50 or 54 or something like that. You don't need to shill NFTs to get super rich. You just mint your own ducks and sell. Yeah, but I mean, I'd rather not interested. I don't want to make money that way. Never been interested in that kind of stuff. Would much rather just make money on my own. What if Bitcoin rug pulls to 40K? Will altcoins bounce more then? Or is Bitcoin the better play then? I think if Bitcoin rug pulls this support, altcoins are going to lose value a shitload towards 40K, and then they're going to bounce bigger towards like back up to like 44. And then if we find resistance again, I think in general, you're probably going to see Bitcoin just act, or like altcoins just act as leveraged Bitcoin. So if you're bullish Bitcoin, it's probably fine to buy altcoins most of the time. And if you're bearish Bitcoin, you're not going to have as good of a time, with a few outliers in there. Like I said, I mean, ADA is up a bunch today. Bitcoin's like up 0.5%, ADA is up 8, and XRP is up 3. So yeah, Bitcoin does something positive. Altcoins are going to do more of that, or at least the strong ones will. Don, please tell Cred to come back to YouTube on Mondays. We promise not to make dumb questions anymore. I mean, it's not my kind of place to tell him what to do. He's enjoying the spaces, so I mean, and people are enjoying it too. There's a bunch of people hanging out there. So, do you have long-term cold storage holds for Bitcoin and ETH? Any strategies for timing buys, DCA, etc.? I used to have them. I sold like my last long-term bags in here. So I don't have anything in that regard. I just have my trading stacks. Not entirely sure when or if I want to be buying back my long-term like bags. I've been pretty like happy with just trading. But yeah, there you go. And DCA, I'm not really a big fan of DCAing. If you're a person that tends to panic, I think it's a good way to go about it. So let's say in general you see like a dip or like you see markets like this and you want to be selling and you get like completely panicky. I think it's a good way to kind of stop you from panicking by DCAing, right? You just buy, and you're happy when it dips because you get to buy cheaper. But if that's not you, if you're not sitting there being like anxious and selling just because it goes down, I think there's a million better ways to kind of get back, like get into the market or do anything of that sort. And the best way to do it, let's say you're bullish on the market and you want to get in, you just buy. And the reason for that is pretty simple. You look at this, right? If you're DCAing, you hate your life because your average is up here while you started DCAing here. You can even start DCAing, like if you start buying, like let's say you buy this high, you're still gonna like, you either buy this high or DCA in here, in here, in here, in here, in here, in here, in here. Your average is still gonna be better even if you buy the high, if you just buy it all at once. So if you're bullish something, just buy it. The only reason to DCA is kind of to keep you from doing stupid shit, which is a fair enough kind of strategy. If you do, like if you tend to do stupid shit, DCA away. It's the best way to kind of keep your wits about you. You mostly swing trade or do some scalping as well? I like 99% swing trade. I don't really do low time frame stuff anymore. When like back in the day I did, it's just like, I don't really like, it's much more hassle than it's worth at this point. But yeah, Jesus fuck Bitcoin, please. Looks pretty shit, not gonna lie. Like seeing this into like the resistance, not looking too pretty. And the problem with it all is that like you have the SVX just nuking. So like that's the reason for it. So even if you want to just make your call off of the Bitcoin chart, you can't. You kind of have to also involve the traditional markets. And that is really hard to do. So like these kind of situations just suck. Okay, there we go. What do you think about Bitcoin Cash? I think like I talked about this like last week too. We talked about Bitcoin Cash and it's up like 10% against Bitcoin or whatever. It's just slow, but it's not a bad setup in my eyes. Like that still looks okay, as long as it doesn't lose like this against Bitcoin. Against USD, I think Bitcoin Cash is actually not the worst setup either. You had like the only worrying sign is like, fucking hell, dude, I hate this. Head and shoulders everywhere. Might have to fucking nuke some altcoins that I have. Run away with like the 10, 15, 20%. In some cases, like 40% that I've gotten. But yeah, like this isn't like disregarding this head and shoulders because that's ugly. This isn't the worst chart given it's just like a range. providing support in here. So like the moment it starts taking out this high and starts invalidating that head and shoulders, it actually looks really good. It's just until then, like, ugh, not too pretty. Beautiful short, yeah. I mean, if you're shorting these, you're basically shorting Bitcoin, which, I mean, given it's in a complacency area, is fine to do, I think. So that's that. With regards to other altcoins, I mean, there's not that much to be said about most of them. I mean, whatever is like what you want to be looking at like, what you want to be looking at days like the one that we're having right now is like what is strong and what is weak, right? So for example, Solana, we had 3-day, right? We talked about this actually last week, I'm pretty sure. And I said, like, the moment it starts ripping through this resistance and this like horizontal, did we talk about this? Anyone here can confirm? I think we did. I think I remember it, but yeah, I said the moment it starts ripping through this and this diagonal, it's just gonna fly, and that's what it's done. So actually outperform pretty much anything. And you want to be looking for those, like the ones that are strong. ADA is one of them. XRP is one of them. And then a few others where you can actually see strength. And those are the ones that you want to be focusing in general on. Like you don't want to be buying the ones that are down a shitload. Like you want to be buying the strong ones in general. Andreas says, yeah, okay, yeah, I thought so too. Don't you use algos to assist your trading, or do it fully, or you do it fully manual? I do it manually. I don't take, like, I'm not that good with that kind of stuff. I just see line and think, okay, this looks good, and I see a narrative and I think this narrative is bullshit, or this narrative is a good one, and I trade that, and that's basically it. Can you look at Atom? Aren't we on Atom right now? Yeah, looks pretty decent to me. Like it's a range play. If you bought the range low, you sell the range high. And then if it starts breaking out above that, I mean, sky's the limit. But this is a range play. And it's not looking bad. And like I said, it's outperforming Bitcoin on a bad day. Something that you want to be seeing, right? What indicators do you use? Have a look at Ichimoku clouds. Now, I mean, yes, I have, but I used to look at a bunch of stuff, figured out whether I like it or not. But no, I don't really use any of those. Like this stuff been in there for years now. I don't really need it. Like you have a good narrative, you have a good chart, you have a trade. You don't need much more. Like the RSI is whatever, doesn't really matter. In my eyes anyway. You can make a system out of that. It's just something that makes my trading worse, not better. So I guess none of this matters if Bitcoin nukes. Yep. That's the thing, right? And none of it matters if the SPX nukes. That's the thing, right? So like in general, like you want to be trading in the market. But the moment like stuff like these movements happen, I mean, it's just out of your hands. Right, so the bigger market decides it all, and for us, like the traditional markets, right, they're much bigger than Bitcoin is, and Bitcoin's much bigger than the altcoins are, right? So if this nukes, so will this most of the time anyway, and so will this. And if Bitcoin nukes, most of the time the altcoins will nuke too. It's just a matter of which one is acting. Like let's say all of this drops and Bitcoin recovers the fastest, right? or like recovers faster than the traditional markets. Then you have like a situation at hand that we've had in March 2020, where you look back and you just know that there's a bunch of strong buyers in there. Like Bitcoin recovered much better than the traditional markets. And then you know it's going to outperform to the upside. And it's the same thing on a large enough time scale on the downside, obviously, too. So let's say the traditional markets pump, Bitcoin pumps smaller, then you know, okay, the traditional markets are probably going to outperform. And yeah, that's just how the relationship works nowadays. It sucks. I don't like it. I would much rather have like nothing to do with how Bitcoin moves, but that's just not something that we have. So always going to be like, at least on the bigger drops in the traditional markets, we're always going to be influenced by. So there you go. What do you think about Sol right now? I talked about it earlier. It's like in price discovery on the Bitcoin pair. No reason to be bearish on it. How is your health? I've been good. Just been a little bit tired the last few days. Just kind of overworked myself in the last few weeks, so taking it easy. Could any altcoins actually live without Bitcoin? Nope. Bitcoin goes to zero. Everything else goes to zero as well. When we get out of XRP, XRP, what I'm looking for, right? On the USD pair, I don't want to see it go back below $1 for a lengthy amount of time. That's why I'm going to get out, probably, where I'm just like, okay, I'm probably just wrong. Based on this weekly support in here, we start losing that. I'm going to be out, taking pretty much a plus minus zero trade, like a little bit of a gain. And on the Bitcoin pair, we start losing basically this, and I'm getting out as well. And then I'll take on the Bitcoin pair, because that's my main focus anyway, I'll take a like 27% gain or whatever. I'm fine with that. Would suck, because I think the setup's really good, and I think there's a good chance that this does this jump through resistance. But if it just doesn't, I'm not gonna be the one back holding something I don't even like, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. I still think this looks pretty strong. I still think there's room to go, but if Bitcoin drops too much, I mean, the setup's gonna get invalidated, and then it's gonna get ugly, I think. For those who keep getting wrecked, are you using leverage? No, I don't. I don't use leverage at all anymore. I used to use it, but now, like I said, tax-wise, it's a little bit more complicated. So in Germany, it's just not worth it for me. And I could set up a company and shit, but I'm just not into it. Like, spot trading is more than plenty for me at this point of my trading career. So that's what I do. Is your main income trading, or are you having other income channels? I have, like, my main income is trading. But then again, like, my main income, like, I don't rely on my main income anymore, because I have enough set aside to be, like, to just live my life however I want to live it. But yeah, my income basically is trading, most of it. And then I have other income channels, like, for example, this stream. And I get paid for like streaming, which is pretty nice, because I used to do it like for free. But I was pretty inconsistent, because like most of the time I'm just like lazy if I don't have a schedule. Just how I work. Like, if I don't have something where I'm like what I do every single week, I'm just gonna, like, most of the time not do it. So yeah, it's been pretty nice. Otherwise, like, I'd be on like every second or third week and do whatever. What do you tell girls when they ask what you do for a living? I tell them I'm working media and try to kind of get out of the question because I fucking hate talking about crypto with other people. Like it's the one thing I won't do, um, is talk about crypto with people I don't know. And even with people I know, I try to avoid it and don't really talk about it. Did you make your wealth mostly from trading or holding? The thing is, I started out with pretty much like 100 or $200 back in 2014, and then just snowballed that up. And I couldn't have done that without trading. So like 99% of my money is from trading and the rest from holding, just based on the fact that I started out with very little, right? You can't just turn like $50 into like something that you can live off of, if you're not trading. And I got pretty lucky during my time. So like I started out traded a lot, and then the bigger you kind of like your account gets, the bigger, like the more money you have, the less trading you have to do, and more you can kind of just sit there, enjoy the passive gains by stuff going up. As the stump has been driven by the SPY, SPX, whatever going down, do you think we retrace some of the stump when the US markets close in about 10 minutes? I mean, that's gonna be the question, right? The moment the market closes, crypto is on its own, right? And then people are gonna speculate how it's gonna open tomorrow. So like, you look at this and it's like, it looks pretty damn ugly, right? And then people are gonna be like sitting here being like, okay, is this gonna just gap down, or like look like just do another one of this tomorrow? And that's gonna be like the question. So more of like, okay, this isn't dragging us down, because like there's no direct like link between the two, right? Just because the SPX goes down doesn't mean like crypto goes down. It's just like traders are selling based on like this going down. They're taking risk off basically. And then like it turns into speculation of where this is going to open. So the answer is I don't know. I could see it slow down, like the selling slowed down, but then again, like this had the SPX, right? You look at this and this is completely fine structurally still, right? With crypto, it starts getting a little bit more dicey at this point, right? It's retesting the support that it's tested a bunch of times. So sometimes when you have like the traditional markets nuke, even if they open up higher over like crypto has already taken damage, like the structure has already taken damage, and people get out and it breaks down, and then it rallies back into like resistance or whatever on the bounce on the traditional markets. And even if they're higher than where they started out dumping, sometimes like the damage is already done, and then crypto is just weaker. It's just how it is. So no easy answer there. Can you explain complacency and complacency area? I mean, just look at any chart, right? We can look at Bitcoin. So you have the top set in, and then you have what is called the complacency bounce. And that just means that people like, you get like the crash and people think it's over, and then it bounces and people think the bull market is back on. And that bounce is usually like, that's what the name kind of complacency bounce like stands for. Just means that people are pretty complacent in their positioning. They're like, okay, this is just gonna go back up, even though it's just a lower high, right? And that's the complacency bounce. In general, usually tends to be in areas of previous resistance, right? In this instance, for example, you set a high here, set a higher high here, broke that high, and then retested here. And if you look at Bitcoin's recent price behavior on the Coinbase launch, you kind of like, you set a high here, you set a high, broke down, and the moment you started approaching that area, you sold off. So that's usually where the complacency bounce comes in. And then like that was the low time frame complacency bounce, right? And now people are wondering whether this here is the complacency bounce, right? So whether this, let me actually remove all of this. It's not really important. So you have this spike up, and then you have this lower spike up, right? So you have this spike up, and then you have this lower spike up. Like, that's what people are worried about, for good reason. And I mean, like I said, I think the chances of this being the case are higher probably than it not being the case. What other videos, educational sites other than Cred stuff would you recommend for noobs? I think Cred stuff is enough, and then just try out yourself. Like, people always tend to like want to have like a million books and like a bajillion videos to watch. The best thing to do is just put some money on an account, trade, like learn the basics. Just go to Cred stuff, watch it, learn the basics, and then try to apply it with your own money. And then you see what works, what doesn't. You see what's your style, and then you go from there, right? You wouldn't want to go read all the books on boxing without ever having boxed yourself, because you don't know what kind of, like, are you, and I'm not really a boxing kind of guy, so excuse me if I like just butcher everything, but are you an infighter? Are you kind of like more like, right? There's a bunch of positions that you could be in, or it's the same with football, right? Football is a little bit easier to explain for me, but like with football, are you like better as a goalie? Are you better as like a defender, a midfielder, that kind of stuff, right? You wouldn't want to just read all the books, watch all the videos on how it's done, and never do it yourself. You would just like, you get the basics, you start doing it, and then you kind of try to educate yourself around that, and then you figure out what you're good at, and then you kind of go from there. So you don't need all the content in the world. You just need like the bare basics, and then you can kind of expand on them. And then if you notice, okay, I'm really good at risk managing, and have like problem areas elsewhere, you can kind of just work with that. Same as golf done. Yeah, I mean, that's like same as everything. That's how the world works. That's how humans work in general. Like if you study the theory, like if you never do maths by yourself, but just study all of it, I mean, yeah, you can get somewhere, but it's going to take longer. You just kind of need to get a feeling for stuff. It's how we learn in general. Hey Dawn, does this recent bounce happening 2 months after the top versus 2017 happening more or less quickly after the top bear any significance? Um, I mean, it could be a bigger cycle top. Like if this is the cycle top and this is generally the top, just given on how big this entire thing is, you could argue that it's gonna take longer to play out. So like go sideways for like more years and then go back up. But no, it doesn't have to. And I mean, to be fair, like I said, we are at high time frame support, and this could just be sideways into further up. I'm not saying it's 100% one or the other. Like I said, the complacency theory is for me confirmed below 40K. That's where I'm going to be like, okay, this is just fucked. And then I'll have an invalidation at that point too. Until then, even though I think it's more likely, I'm not going to trade in that direction, because it's much more like missing out on something in general. Like let's say you're bearish on a market that goes completely crazy is worse than being bullish on a market that just vanishes, because like on the downside, yeah, you're going to lose a bunch of money, right? But the thing is, like, getting back into this is pretty much impossible. Let's say you position yourself here bullishly and it breaks down, you can buy more lower if you're bullish on the asset. Now, if you're bullish on the asset and you position yourself bearish before it starts breaking out, it's really hard to kind of get back in. So I'm down with like kind of letting my stuff get taken out by the market and then getting the confirmation that I need, as memey as it sounds, in this kind of instance. But yeah, it's not looking too pretty right now in the lower time frames. What are the odds that this turns into range and we crab? I think almost zero. I think there's a very, very small chance it crabs, at least in this range. I think if you want to see a crab, I could see it crab in this range, in the bigger one, or even somewhere in here. But even that, I think, is pretty unlikely. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Any other questions? Anything that I've explained poorly? Pretty tired today, so I'm gonna keep it short. How did you make it with $200? I'm out here losing thousands. I mean, I bought Dogecoin at pretty much next to zero, right? And it went up, and then I 10x'd my money basically a couple times, back to back to back, and then reinvested everything that I doubled and tripled and 10x'd right back into the market, right? So like if you start with 200 and you 10x and you put it back into the market, you have 2K, and then you 10x it again, and you have 20K, and you 10x it again, and you have 200K, and it just went and went. I mean, we just had like really good trading conditions back then. Like you just pick the right altcoin, and for some of these altcoins went not only 10x, they went like 50x, and then like the numbers got crazy really fast. And the one thing that I did correctly and that I've always done pretty damn decently is just not getting wrecked in the bear markets. So didn't take a big haircut in here, actually made some money during the sideways and during the drop, and got pretty lucky with buying in here, and then didn't get fucked in here. Didn't really position well for this, so. But yeah, so like, and I didn't get fucked in here either. Like I usually don't get fucked on the downswings. If anything, I'm not aggressive enough on the upswings. That's what I usually tend to do. And knowing that, I'm willing to kind of risk a little bit being aggressive on this upswing, because I think if this is not going to play out bullishly, we're in for a bear market. And that's going to be the last kind of opportunity that you get to play it bullishly. So, I mean, who cares, right? If you're wrong at that point, if you're wrong on the last chance that you get on being bullish, nice, and you just get out and buy much, much cheaper, which I'm fine with as well. I have enough money on the sidelines to buy a shitload if it goes back to 20K or 15K. Not entirely sure if it will, but if it does, I mean, I'm down for it, right? So there you go. That's kind of my recipe for my success, whatever that means. What are your bearish confirmations? That's what I said with like the 40K thing. If it goes back below 40K, I think that's bearish confirmation. And then even if it bounces back above 40K, I think that's a bounce to sell, and then it's going to head lower. If it breaks out to the upside here, I mean, that'd be nicer. I don't know where it would go. And I've said the same thing at 30K. I much rather, like whenever I have no idea where something goes, if it breaks to the upside, I'd much rather be positioned, because if you don't know where it's going to go, there's no real easy entry for you. Like if this heads up here, I don't know, like if I'm sidelined and it heads up here, I have no fucking idea where to buy, right? Like buy the breakout into like distribution in here that heads back down, sounds pretty shitty to me. Buy like into like 60K, I mean, fine-ish, but then again, that's pretty high and could like double top back into like 50 or like even a little bit lower before it heads up. So that's a pretty shitty buy as well, right? So like all of the buys above seem shitty to me. So I'm down to just kind of let the bear market come to me. And if it's going to come to me, I'm just going to be getting out and buying much cheaper. So there you go. That's kind of my like grand plan. That said, I mean, I'm not like on the altcoins, I'm not going to take any losses. Like they've rallied pretty nicely, and I'm going to sell before I get cut, because I'm not a big altcoin believer. And if they're not behaving like I want them to, I get out usually. So that's that, right? But so far, like this chart is still looking really good to me. Just don't want it to start bleeding out again, like it's done in here, for example. If that happens, I get out. There you go. Hope that kind of was a little bit entertaining and a little bit I don't even know the word anymore. I'm so tired. I hope that helped you anyway. Appreciate the sponsor of the show, which is FTX. Their links are in the description if you want to check that out. Portfolio tracking and online mobile app trading, all of that kind of stuff is something they provide. So if you want to check that out, if you're interested in that, like I said, the links are in the description. Appreciate you guys coming by and see you guys next time. Bye bye.